G'day everybody, another weekend. So again, I'm stuck with dates. I don't know, it's like the 26th or something, Saturday the 26th of June. Still playing around with this back wheel. As you can see, I got the tyre fitted during the week, the new tyre. Beautiful, nice thick knobbies. Been playing around with this brake hub. Now, if you remember, this brake hub was off the Yamaha rims and it fitted over nicely, but I found when I put the bolt through the whole lot, the brake hub was clamping down too hard on the rim and it wasn't allowing the rim to turn. So what I've done is I've got two very thin washers in there, and I've used, they only have to be held in place, it's not structural, so I've just used some liquid nails and just glued those in, and that's given me enough room, enough space for those washers to sit on that inner race and just hold the brake hub out slightly so it's not hard up against the this surface here of the hub, and it works beautiful. So it goes to prove that you can use a Yamaha brake hub on a Honda back wheel. So that's all good. Now I'm playing around with the spacings. Oh, the spacer tubes on the back of this. I apologise again for the light. Now, I wasn't sure what I was going to do because this is the old 15-inch rim and it had this type of setup here which basically locks this to the swing arm. So as most of you will know, it will go through here and it will lock itself off. It's just like a backup locking mechanism so the rim doesn't slide. So anyway, this one is suited for this bike. It even fits the seal. I didn't want to go butchering that because if I ever have a problem with this 14-inch rim, I've got the 15-inch to put back on it, and I've got all the hardware to go with it, and we all know that it fits. And I didn't want to go touching that. So what I did is I went out and had a look in that little can of Yamaha parts that I kept when I stripped both the wheels down. So I had the axles, and I had the brake shoe springs, and the tube that sits inside the hub before you that you put in before you punch the bearings in on the opposite side. And I kept some of the bearings and everything like that. So so I'd set this back wheel up without one of those locking collars, I guess you'd call it, locking collar. And all I did was I just had the, as you can see here, just the adjuster, and I ran the bolt through it, and I put a thin, might even have been this one. I set that there, but really there's nothing to lock that in place. And for some reason, without having that locking collar, it also makes the axle stick out further, so you have actually some of this raw material on the shaft, unthreaded material, sticking out this side because there's nothing to space it out on this side. So what I've done, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to ramble on, but I'll be able to I was going to put this on the outside to take up that extra space there, but I won't need that now with the new idea that I've got. This is my spacer for here for the inside, and that is absolutely perfect. That's my washer and nut for the outside, so that is all good to go. I'm going to have to revert back to, this is one of the new adjusters that I bought, which has a standard YZ80 axle size hole in it. But what I had to do with that collar was I had to actually grind this out to take that collar. So I don't know if you'll be able to see that in the camera. There's a big difference in the size, and I thought with the way that I was setting this up currently without that locking thing, I could revert back to a standard size one, but then I thought, nah, I've got to have that locking collar on there. So I've been able to keep that because they were brand new, they were reset. So I'll take you out and I'll show you what I've done. Okay guys, we're back out in the garage. So I had this one here off the Yamaha back rims, but it was too long and it wasn't going to work for the 80 rims. So what I did is I took the old spacer and I measured it against there on how thick it would be. I put all this in the swing arm and I measured it out, and that's what it was going to be. Now we can discard that, but it's a good sleeve, so I'm going to keep it. This one we won't need anymore, so we'll just put that aside for now. Now before I realised I had this, what I was going to do is, I don't have a 17mm drill bit, but these are the bearings that came out of the Yamaha wheel, so they have to be 17mm inside diameter. So what I was going to do is I was going to cut through the outer race on both sides, basically take the outer race off and the balls, and I was actually going to use this hardened race as my spacer because it happens to be exactly the same size. It doesn't quite have, well, it probably does have the same wall thickness, but obviously it dips down in the outer, on the outer side of the race to take the ball bearings, but it's hardened steel, so it's not going to break. So that was my idea until I discovered that I had this one, and this one happens to go straight over. Now, in the way of height, if you can see that, it's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to have to put that on the linisher, probably linish a little bit off it, but I don't have to drill. And if I want to make this into one piece, like a factory item, what I can do is I can just Loctite that on there. So what I'm going to do is we'll go back in the house now and we'll actually trial this. That's what we've just made, or I've just made out of the two pieces. So cut the original end off that, found this, it's a perfect fit over the top, just needs a little bit of the width reducing. So this will slide through there, which is a perfect fit. This will take that enlarged chain adjuster, which will go over there. It may need one washer, okay, so this, when I let go of this, it might look like it's a bit loose, so it will still need a washer on it. And I sort of had to get a shifting spanner, put this in the vise and get a shifting spanner, because it's a little bit, as it gets towards the bottom, it's a little bit tight. I don't know whether there was some thread damage there or what there was, but I think you get the idea. That's going to work perfect for me now. I've got this secondary like tightening point, which is great, and it's almost a dead setup for that one off the 15-inch, and that means today we can actually get the back wheel finished. So I'm very happy with it. It's been a little bit of mucking around. Oh, one of the other jobs I've got to do, so just let me get this off. So it's a little bit tight there, but once you get past those two threads, like, it just spins straight off. So I don't know what happened. It might just have, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? It's an old bike. So you're not going to be able to see it in the camera, so I'll just explain it. But inside the tube here, there's actually a little lip. There's a step there. And the axle will pass through there, and then it stops. It doesn't go all the way through. And the thread will go through on this side, but the shaft won't go through. So what I think I'm going to go and do is pull out one of the Yamaha axles, and I may have to use the Yamaha axle simply because of that step in there. If I was to drill that out, I could probably get away with it, but it's going to make the wall section very thin. So I've just got to have a little bit of a play around and see what I can do. If worst comes to worst, I will drill this out to use this axle. But if I can use the Yamaha axle and not have to drill it, it'll almost be like it was, you know, a factory fit. Okay guys, I got the Yamaha axle and I think it's going to work. Like I'll need, you got to remember, I've got to put the chain adjuster in there, so that will take up a little bit of space. And then I can always put a backing washer behind it. Nut's a lot smaller. I don't know where the nut's gone for the axle there, but who knows? Doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm lucky. I've got the nut for this axle, so I think it will work okay. As you can see, it's stepped there. So I think this is what we're going to go with. I don't like this idea here, like of having that. I like things to be, if they're a bolt, they've got to have a bloody, some sort of head on them. This looks like it, you just put a pin in there and jam it up. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It will serve its purpose, and I think we're pretty much on the way to getting this rear wheel mounted. A few little modifications and a couple of little swap outs. I really, as strange as it sounds, I really like this axle. Nice and chunky, but it's not to be. So yeah, we'll use the Yamaha one. So I'm going to keep going, guys, and try and reduce the size of this spacer down to what I need, and come back in and try and put it all together for you. Okay, so I've got it all completed now. As you can see, I've got the bigger washer here on the outside of the adjuster, just to take up any slack there, but I also don't like the bolts pushing against the adjuster because they end up chewing them out. This is one of the ones, the original ones off this YZ80D. As you can see, as you tighten them up, they start to really deteriorate. So I'd rather put a backing washer on it, and it was already pre-painted, so I'm guessing it came off one of the shockers. So bonus, don't have to paint. That's the tubular spacer, which is right for that side, and that actually was on that 15-inch rim. So I've retained everything now from that 15-inch, including the axle and the nut. I found the nut. So it'd be like a 5-minute swap over if I ever needed to swap the rims over. Simple as that. Because it's using the same enlarged hole on this side for this setup. I've Loctited. I've ground down this sleeve, and I've Loctited that to the what did I refer to it as before? Oh, the adapter, or the, you know what I'm talking about, what I was working on before. So in this side, I opted to put the washer behind the adjuster on this one, simply because this nut locks over the top of it. And then obviously the nut, and nut, that's only finger tight, but as you can see, You know, it's pretty sturdy, it's pretty firm, and it's going to work. It's I've, you know, God, touch wood. I have to touch real wood because this is laminate. Touch wood. Everything is going to go well today with whatever I do on the bike. This has been a great start. It was just a matter of trying to work it out. Had a lot of parts. I didn't know what was going to work for me. The other thing too was when I fitted up that 15-inch rim, what I had to do was I had to slightly increase this elongated slot in the swing arm. I had to actually take it down because the body here of the adapter was wider than the slot in the swing arm. Well, it turns out that this Yamaha one is identical to this one, so it's basically a perfect swap over. And the only difference is that this is slightly longer, simply because the hubs are offset differently, and this one just has a locator on it to sit inside the seal there, but that still sits hard up against the inner bearing race. So kick the goal here, guys. I think I'm going to fit the rim up now, and I'll show you what it looks like once it's fitted up. Okay guys, it's all together. So that's looking at it from this side. So I'll have to carry with me in my toolbox some sort of pin or something to just put into that hole when I'm tightening up back rims. This side, it's all good. So I've locked up this nut here. This one is just past finger tight with the shifter. You can see the spacer in there. There's enough clearance between the nuts. Now, the wheel, as you can see, it free spins. It is a little tight, but that's the brake shoes. They're brand new brake shoes. And like the more I've been spinning this for a couple of minutes, and the more I spin it, the more rotation I get. But watch this. I'll watch how sensitive these brakes are. I barely touch it, which is how they should work. So it's just going to take a little bit of see, that was even better. See, all it's doing is just taking that little bit of material off the shoes, and that will free spin. It was the same with the front wheel as well. I found that was just, even though I had all the adjustment backed off, you can still hear it in spots, just catching until they bed themselves in. Oh, look at that little scratch. God knows how I get these little scratches on it. I've got no idea. Doesn't matter. So I think we can pretty much call that complete in regards to the back wheel part of the bike. I've got the brake pedal out in the garage at the moment. I'm not going to spray that, I'm going to hand paint it. I just can't be bothered getting a spray gun out and the compressor and everything to paint one brake lever. So I'm going to do it with a fine brush so I don't get any streak marks in it. And I'm going to paint that up, and that should be dry in a couple of days. Because being winter, it's going to take a long time for enamel to dry. As you can see here, all this lined up really well. That's the original bolt out of the Yamaha drum plate. So that's good. I've still got to, as I said, I've got to go around. I've got to tighten up a few things. So yeah, we're getting closer day by day. Day by day. I love my little exhaust tip in there. It's going to serve its purpose nicely. It's going to get rid of all that sooty condensation. out the side here rather than dirty up all the back of the plate. So there's a few detailing spots I need to go over. Yes, I'm aware that there's a few rough spots in the tank, but I will rub some of that back and maybe even shoot another coat of paint over it. I've got the sticker to go on the front there. I've still got the stickers to go on the tank as well on both sides. So remember, majority of the tank's going to be taken up with the transfers, with the stickers. We're making good progress, guys. I think I am anyway. So yeah, that's as much a bitzer as that was a bitzer, but this looks a lot better. You know, it looks like it belongs now. And this model bike, YZ80D, did come out with a 14-inch rim, so we've pretty much taken it back to what it should be. I don't think anybody's going to notice the fact that that hub is a Honda hub. And if they notice that, then they're going to definitely notice that that's a YZ brake hub. So they'd have to be pretty damn good. But yeah, I'm happy with the way the bike's come up. Okay, all that's welded up now, the kickstand. And I've given that a lick of paint around the top area. I've actually made it double the thickness up the top here. So yeah, it's double the thickness of the old pin. So it should never break again, which is good. And my brake pedal, I've just painted that. All done by hand with a brush. Wasn't going to get the compressor out for two little items. I had a lot of bending. I still wasn't happy with the shape of the brake pedal. So I've had my my torch out and I've been heating it up, and I've put a bend in here where that was straight before. So I've actually kicked that up halfway underneath the crankcase, and then I've had to do a lot of rebending here at 90 and then sort of like kick this in and kick it up. And I did, with all the bashing, I was using a big lump hammer, big mash hammer. I did split the weld, so I went back in and ground out both sides and re-welded it. And also this part here, I needed to sort of bash this around and square this out a little bit more. And the same thing happened there. With bashing, I actually cracked the weld. I did heat everything up. The vise is still hot. I did this about an hour ago, and that vise is still. It's cold enough to put your hand on, but it's still hot. So yeah, I did a dry fit up of this before I just painted it. I put the brake bar on to the back wheel, and the brakes work beautiful. So kicked a goal there. Okay, I've just bought the chain in to fit this up. I cleaned it probably 12 months ago. I had it soaking in vinegar for about a week. Come up pretty bloody good. I was thinking about going out and buying a can of gold paint just to make it look a bit more spiffy, you know, a bit newer. But as you can see, big changes. Big changes. With the old wheel there, I was never able to bring it all the way forward, even though I'd hollowed that elongated hole out in the swing arm. The wheel was never fully forward at any time. It was always set at the halfway mark, and then obviously pulled back as the chain stretched over time. And we've gone with a slightly smaller sprocket on here. This one's 42, I think, and that one was 45. So it gives you an idea of how much I've got to take out of the chain to adjust it for this new sprocket, and the fact that the wheel can go all the way forward now, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'll get a bit of life out of this old chain yet. So yeah, very happy. Chain lines up nice. I don't know this will be too glary with the light on, but it's running exactly the same way as it did when that rim was on it. And usually the marks in the swing arm are a good indicator, but I could never use those to see whether the chain was running true, because this is a different engine. So the sprocket sat a little further in, but I always knew that from the first wear mark there, that the inner high side, as long as the chain sat in line with that, I knew that I had alignment. So yeah, pretty happy. Now I've just got to work out how many links to take out. Shouldn't be all that many, I don't think. I'm guessing maybe one. I'd probably take one out to start with and see how that goes, and if I need to make a little bit of adjustment here and push it back, I can. But I think it's amazing how much of a difference one link will make when it's sagging like that. So yeah, I'll give one link a try and see how we go. Okay guys, that's one link. Split link's just here. That's one link out of the chain. I'm pretty happy with that. I wouldn't want to go another one because I've got no forward adjustment left anymore. I think the adjustment will all come from the back. So yeah, I'm happy with that. That's pretty good. As you can see, there's some play in it, but you'd even probably struggle to get it off the sprocket. So yeah, just nibble away at it, I guess. Never take too much off, just because it's real hard to add it back on. So yeah, happy with that. Okay guys, a little bit more of a look at the chain. I've tensioned it up. It's probably a little, maybe a fraction tight, maybe just a fraction tight, but until I get it on the ground, I'm not really going to know. So yeah, that's why I've left the split pin out, or the circlip, whatever you want to call it, chain link. But as that sits, everything is adjusted evenly. The wheel's sitting in the center. It's 28 millimeters from there to the end on both sides. So we've got a nice square wheel there sitting in the wheel well. Geez, a lot of dust on this. Well, that's good. So one of the next jobs I'm going to do, I'm going to make a bracket to go from the exhaust up to here, which I think on the YZ80D may have actually been an exhaust bracket. Not 100% sure, but I have used that as a bracket before for mounting the exhaust, but it's a very crude bracket, so I want to make something nice to go in there. So yeah, I'm happy with the way this is coming along. So if I'm not particularly busy tomorrow, I might go down and get some gold paint and paint that up. Hi everybody, it's Friday night, so made an early start on the bike before weekend kicks in. I've got the battery, I filled the battery with the battery acid, and I've got that on charge at the moment, and I've got to charge that for 3 to 5 hours, so that's out there doing its thing. I had a little bit of a play around with a few more things on the bike. I was having a lot of troubles with the kickstand. The pin that I welded onto the frame could have done with being a fraction longer, because every time you would pull the stand down, what it would do is put a kink in the spring, and it was causing the spring to overstretch, and when it went back up into its retracted spot, the spring was stretched and it would sag. So what I've done is I've just discarded that pin, I've left it on the frame. You can't see it, and what I've done is I've just drilled a hole through the actual frame itself, and just fed the end of the spring wire in. Just straightened out the spring wire on the end a little bit, fed that in, and when I got enough in that I knew it was past the wall thickness of the tube, I just sort of bent down on the spring just to put like a little return on it, and it seems to work great. You know, like the bike seems to be standing okay. It's all working good. So the spring, as you can see, the spring needed to be a little straighter. There's a pin here, be too dark to see it, but what I've done is I've just drilled a little hole in the actual frame tube, and that's kept it nice and straight. So that was another job that I've done today. As I said, the battery's on charge, and I'm just gathering up all the little bits and pieces now, hose clamps and transfers for the tank, for the front number plate. Strangely enough, I actually have a Kawasaki Ninja sticker to go on this bike. Reason being, my sister, excuse me, my sister's nickname is Nins, but we also call her Ninja, so she's got her own personalised front number plate now. So yeah, I've just been gathering up all those. I've got my tank stickers here. Originally I bought, not these ones, they're the ones I bought second. I bought these ones out of the United Kingdom. I did take note of the measurements when I purchased them, and I cut out a piece of paper to the dimensions that they said these were, and I put that up against the tank, and it seemed to look alright. And then when I finally received them, they looked way too small, so I ordered the next size up, and these are better suited for the tank. They will go on there nice. So looks like I've got a spare set. I don't want to put them on the side panels. I think it'll just be too much. So yeah, just end up with a spare set, that's all. Got to put a couple of split pins in here and there. Front axle's got to have a split pin in it. But the reason I haven't done that yet is there is a set of springs off a 1979 RM80 in the States for a really, really good price, brand new. And the shipping's excellent. Like, I haven't seen shipping that cheap in a long time. So either the Aussie dollar's getting stronger or the US dollar's getting weaker. But turns out that I know travel and spring size are different, but the RM80 spring in lengthwise is 140mm. These YZ80D shockers had a travel length of 132mm. So it doesn't bother me if the spring's a little bit longer by a handful of millimeters, or you know, even up to 30 millimeters, 3 centimeters. There's enough compression in the spring that I would be able to get those springs into these forks. You'd probably say, why don't you buy a set of Yamaha ones? Well, they're double the price for a start, and I can't get them for a D. I can get them for an F, but the F was longer at the bottom. I had a longer travel, so these Suzuki ones seem to be a little bit closer in length, but I'm just waiting on the guy to get back to me about the spring diameter. I've got to make sure it's the same size diameter as those springs, and if they are, I'm going to grab them, and might as well fully refurbish the front forks as well. I've done the rear. All these poor forks got was a set of fork seals about 30 years ago, and then it sat in the garage pretty much all that time. So they're not dried out. I've actually had the boots off the top of the fork tubes and checked them out. There's no leaks. They're still nice and soft. I put a little bit of Vaseline around the top of the seal before I put the caps back over. I find that helps stop them drying out, and it also gives it a water barrier too. So yeah, so the seals are good. It'll only be the springs that have gone saggy in them. So if I can get those, that'll be really good. And I should have those after I get back from the UK. Not much else to tell, guys. It's just bits and pieces, a little bit of cleanup here, a little bit of cleanup there. As I said, grab all the bits and pieces I need, the hose clamps, and yeah, in the morning I'll flush the tank out and get the tank ready. It's part of the, fuel side of it anyway. I've got to put fuel in the tank, so I'll just take the tank off and flush it out, and then once it's flushed, I'll put some clean fuel in it. Once it is up and running, once I know it runs, I'm going to dump the oil on this as well. I've got enough oil left in the garage from when I did the Hunter and the Atomic, so I will dump the oil on the engine. Not that it's in bad condition, it's actually quite clean, but if you're starting fresh, you start fresh, so all good. I'll leave it here, guys. Oh, another thing I did order is I ordered another spark plug boot, but this one's sort of on a 45. I've ordered one that's on a 90. So it's still a little bit close. Like there is clearance there, as you can see, but it's gonna just make it a little bit awkward to get the boot off with the exhaust. So I've ordered a 90 degree, and it should be a little bit better. So Hong Kong specials, yep, three delivered for, I think, $4.70. How can you go wrong? If it doesn't work, I just put that one back on. Decided to do a little bit more work on the bike on the inside. So although I said I'm going to tape up the wiring loom once I know the bike starts, I've cable tied a few things up out of the way so that I don't get any just don't get any loose wires catching on anything. Another thing I wanted to do was I was looking at buying some decals, the off for the throttle housing. So there was a engine stop and an off run. So what I did, I cheated. I just opened up Microsoft Word and I typed the letters in. I think I used an 11 font, which, whether it's correct or not, it turned out to be the right size. And I made a couple of copies, as you can see, and I put the transfer, my Ninja transfer, on the front number plate today for my sister. That's her nickname. So it didn't turn out too bad. Looks like it's on an angle, but it's not. Once the bike stands up straight, it's pretty much all good, and it does have that what do they call it? That italic, that lean font to it. So that's all good. But I might as well show you where they go. So there's one here, and there's one here. So I was hoping to the sticky backing that was on that Ninja sticker, turned out to be a great adhesive. So I've sort of stuck the two pieces back together. You can probably vaguely see where the Ninja sticker was inside there. So it worked great as like a clear contacted adhesive cover. So I left it a little bit longer on the edges, hoping that I would be able to make that stick to the housing, but it won't. There's just not enough stick on it. But I've been able to cover those. So it's actually like almost laminating them. So what I'll do is I'll just use a little bit of glue, and I'll just glue them on there. Basically use anything from super glue to a Yoo-hoo stick, or basically anything, I guess. It doesn't really matter. And I can make these as many times as I need to. So yeah, so that takes care of that. I could have got them. I only found one listing on eBay for these. They had to come from the UK, and I think it worked out at about 12 Australian dollars to buy them. And then you had the shipping on top of that, which I think worked out at about $4.36 Australian. So for something so tiny, it was going to be so expensive. And believe me, they don't look much different than the originals. The originals look like they're copies anyway, because on the corners they look a different colour to the rest of it. They look like it's like they're dirtied up or something, or someone's tried to sort of like pick them away to copy them, and then they didn't look crash hot. So I've got my little decals there. I can make as many of them as I want. Another thing that I did today was I took this side plate off, because, as you know, I charged the battery up last night, and the battery's all fastened in there now. It's in its cradle, and there's an overflow tube. Now, when I brought it in, I had this tiny one on it, because this was simply clean. And the big one I had to use to gravity feed the fluid from the bottle, the acid, into the battery up through this breather. So basically you squeeze it like you do on two-stroke oil bottles that have the filler pipe and the reservoir up the top. This was the same sort of method. So that tube was full of battery acid, and I didn't really want to bring that in the house last night in the dark and end up dripping battery acid all over the floor. So this morning I washed out the tube and took the side plate off where I had access, took the small tube off, put the big tube on, and I've run the big tube down through here and then in through the frame, which goes behind the back of the motor mount. And if I can get on this side, you might be able to see it a bit clearer, I think. It's just here. So it's hanging out the bottom of the frame. It can't get on anything if we have acid leaks. So that's good. Brake pedal, I reinstalled that last night. Yes, I've scratched it again, but when I did take it, I had it hanging up here with the kickstand on some hooks, and I looked at the kickstand, and the kickstand wasn't bad. You've got to remember I painted this with a paintbrush, so you're probably going to get a few streaks, and it was one coat, and I did strip it back to bare metal. So I'm going to now give this another coat, but I'm going to hand paint it on the bike. Now that looks like it's sitting up high, and yes it is. But really, I want it sitting there. So I think I need to put a return spring on here. Otherwise it comes back too far. As you can hear, it hits the bottom of the kickstart casing. So when that's in the right position, that's pretty much in the right position. I don't mind that being up a little bit. I like the fact of it's sort of like a brake pedal in a car, I guess. you know, your brake pedal's always on an angle. It's not completely flat like that or completely straight like that. You usually have it on an angle so that you push down on it, and this is the same. Your toes will push down on it, but it all works nice. So I'm very happy with that. So I will go to Honda this week and I'll see what they've got in regards to a return spring for this. And once I've got that return spring and I got the pedals sitting where I need it to, I can adjust the nut at the back and get the brakes working really good on that. What else have I done this morning? Not much, guys. Not much on this. As I said, I took the tank off. I've put a couple of hose clamps on here, but this is another thing I'm going to go and see the Honda dealer about. I know there are proper clamps you can buy for your fuel lines that look a lot neater than hose clamps. So for these 5 points, I'm going to see what sort of factory Honda clamps they do have, and I'm quite happy to leave hose clamps on these 2 major spots. I haven't shoved that down because I'm using that to sort of hold this up so it doesn't flop all around the place at the moment, but I'm happy to leave clamps on there just simply because this is cheap ass Chinese plastic and I want to make sure it seals properly. So yeah. Another thing I did is the nuts for these bolts that go through the tank. What I've decided to do to make things a little bit easier is I got some 5-minute araldite, which in these weather conditions takes about 5 days to dry. Just roughened up one side of the washer and roughened up one side of the nut, and I've actually glued the washer to the nut so it won't be as hard to get up inside here. I'll only have, because really all I can do is get a finger in there. I'll have a little bit more room if I take the condenser out, but there's not a lot of room, and I'm guessing that the way I'll do it, if it doesn't end up sticking to the frame, is I will grab my magnetic tool and fasten that to the nut, and let me open the telescopic thing on it a bit, just a little bit, so it always wants to pull to the frame, see? So that might not be a good idea, but another idea that I have used in the past is an icy pole stick with a piece of tape. It's great. Yeah, so you just double the tape over, stick it to the icy pole stick, stick the nut, double-sided tape you can use as well, and yeah, stick the nut on it and stick the icy pole stick up in there until you can see it, and then stick the bolt through and screw it in, and once you've made contact it's alright. Then you can put your spanner up inside there. You don't need much room for your spanner, and tighten it up. Okay guys, I just stuck those on. They don't look too bad. The top one I could have probably left a little bit more paper on the bottom and the top of it, but no one's going to notice it, so yeah, all good. Hi everyone, another day. It's Sunday. Had the chance to sort of tinker with the bike a little bit this afternoon. I had something on this morning, so yeah, I did what I could. I did flush that fuel tank out this afternoon. Got that all nice and clean inside, and put the decals on the tank. So They've come up pretty good. There's no right or wrong place to put them because it is a Suzuki tank. So, yeah. But yeah, they look alright there. What else did I discover today? I did try to kickstart it today and realised I had no spark. But not via the spark plug, via the points. I can't actually get the plug out. Since I've rebent the exhaust, I can't get it out. So I've got to get one of those old-fashioned plug spanners that I can slip in over that and undo the plug from the side rather than from straight out. So I've got to pick up one of those plug spanners this week because I'll be buggered if I'm going to take the exhaust off every time I need to change the plug. I did change, sorry, I did not change, I did make up a bracket here for the exhaust. It's a nice, strong, sturdy bracket. I will paint that. I guess it's in trial fit up mode at the moment. One of the other things I discovered getting back onto the spark and having no spark at the points, I thought I'd just check this fuse. Now I know this fuse was a good fuse when I integrated it into the circuit, and turns out it was blown. Now I'm thinking, okay, so what's blown it? So I went and grabbed my box of fuses and stuff, and I put another fuse in, and I switched the ignition on. Fuse is still intact. Went to turn on the kill switch or engine start, bang, fuse blew. So I know where the problem's coming from, but as to why it's a problem, I don't know. So for the time being, I've disconnected the wire under here, put another fuse in it, turn the ignition back on, didn't blow the fuse. So however the circuit's sitting now, I know there's technically not a fault in it. So because it's not blowing the fuse, so I'm probably okay there. Little disappointed. Came in here this afternoon, obviously to do all these other things. Went to push the bike outside to try and start it, and the back tyre's as flat as a tack. Unbelievable. I took it to a motorbike place because the first attempt I had at it, trying to put that new tube in and that rim band, caused punctures in the rim band and in the tyre too. So sorry, not the tyre, the tube. So I took it to a Honda dealer, and I had them fit it up. And for the past week, that thing's been sitting in here and it's been up. Today, it's completely flat to the point where the tyre even came away from the rim. So I can't explain it. I just don't know. I don't know. So I have to take that back to the Honda dealer and have them take the tyre off, because the bike hasn't been anywhere. It's just been sitting here. And yeah, so we've got a couple of little teething problems so far: spark plug, kill switch, back tyre. So looks like we're losing out on a week. But I also have to go to the Honda dealer. It's Sunday now. I can't go there until Tuesday, simply because I've got some doctor's appointments and physio tomorrow. But I need to get a handful of other things. So I'll get the rear tyre fixed. I've got to get 8 clamps for the fuel lines. I need to get a brake pedal return spring. I need to get a gasket for the points cover. And I need to get a plug spanner, an old school. I think it's 11/16. I've got to check that, but I'm pretty sure it's 11/16, and that'll be the next lot of stuff that gets done. So anyway guys, I'll leave it here, and we'll pick up on things when I get all that stuff. Cheers.